Today we're going to talk about this. It's just a little spray bottle. You can pick them up for cheap, loads of places online. This one's full of water, and more it seems like it's becoming part of people's coffee kits. So today we're going to look at why are people using these? What do they do? Is this now a little coffee essential? Now the basis for this is nothing particularly new. In fact, I've made a video kind of about the same thing 3-4 years ago to do with adding a little bit of water to your beans before you grind them to help mitigate static. Take just a droplet of water, literally, and drop it on, stir it into the beans, and then away you grind. More recently though, these seem to have come into fashion. Now behind me you'll see 5 of the finest grinders that money can buy, and I'm going to be reviewing them over the course of a week, culminating in a big head-to-head. But what was interesting to me is that at least half of these grinders came with a spray bottle, which suggests something about this is increasingly essential. Now, just spraying a little bit of water onto those beans adds about 0.1 of a gram of water. So on a 18 to 20 gram dose, that's not much of an addition from that perspective. It does massively reduce static, and I'll show you in a second just how much difference that it makes. Now, I was skeptical of this being better than what I was doing before, but it's kind of easier in many ways. I've fully gone on board with using the little spray bottle over using the droplet technique, mostly because with this particular setup, I don't have a sink here, and just having this to hand means I can do a quick spray as I weigh my beans and then away I go. The difference is profound when it comes to using many of these grinders, like night and day, and I will show you that in a second. But it's not a perfect solution. And I'll talk about a couple of the issues that I have, as well as answer a few different questions that you might have about using this thing and whether you should get one and whether it would work for you and your particular workflow. So first up, let's do some pretty simple testing. I will grind the same dose of coffee in all 5, in fact let's do all 6 of these grinders, and I'll show you a side-by-side of me doing that with those grinders. You can judge for yourself how much of an impact it has on retention and mess, both of which are a big issue. I should add that this is not to comment on the grinders, this is just to show the difference of a spray of water versus no spray of water. Okay, so looking at that footage, it seems pretty clear-cut that a little spritz of water on your beans before you grind them is a very good idea. Helps with retention massively, if not completely remove static. So am I saying everyone should use this every single time? No. This is great. I do like this. It is now how I like to get rid of static when I'm grinding coffee with any of the grinders that I use, but it does have a few issues that may impact your particular workflow. Firstly, if you're something like a niche user, chances are you dose in the thing that you grind back into. Spraying this with water is a recipe for disaster. Ground coffee will stick to the inside of this. It's very bad. Secondly, if the funnel into your burrs is quite flat, it's not too steep, then you can have some sticking issues. Grinders like the Niche or the EG1 or even the Monolith, you can get some beans sort of sticking on the funnel into the burrs, which is a little bit frustrating. The biggest issue I had was probably with the Niche, with the anti-popcorning disc in there as well. Those two things meant that if you'd sprayed the beans with quite a bit of water, one good spray was usually enough, then you had some sort of stickage of the beans on the funnel, and that was very frustrating. So be aware of that. And thirdly, if you do this all the time, you will get an accumulation of water in quite a significant quantity around your grinder, around your funnel, around your burr set, and I'm not sure that's a great idea. Obviously, burrs themselves are exposed constantly to whatever moisture is in the air, and depending where in the world you are, that can be quite a lot of moisture. But putting in this amount of liquid, I cannot say with 100% confidence that that won't cause any problems over time. I think if you're dosing 1 dose of coffee a day, a little spritz is going to be completely fine. But if you're dosing back to back to back to back 4, 5, 6, 7 shots, then you might have issues. And from my point of view, as a message to all grinder manufacturers, this is a great little hack. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't be working on a fix for your grinders more broadly. I don't want to have to do this. The ideal workflow is that this does not exist. I don't need it. But right now, with almost every grinder I've ever used that is a single dose grinder, you kind of do. It is a pretty useful little thing. Now, some of you, and you know who you are, some of you might say, haha, what about the water in the bottle? How much does that matter? And that's a reasonable question, I guess. The answer is this: it doesn't matter that much. I tested this with regular water from the tap, filtered water, and distilled water. They all worked very well. They had no noticeable impact on flavour that I could discern. A single spray is putting maybe 0.1 of a gram onto the beans. Not all of it is even going to go in with the beans into the grinder, so your contribution of water here is actually really very minimal. Not something to worry about, but I'd still want it to taste clean and be free of any unpleasantness. But yeah, regular filtered water is going to be totally fine. Now there's one more little hack you can do with these that's kind of interesting that I want to talk about, but first I want to thank this video's sponsor, which is Squarespace. If you've got an idea for something, then the first thing I would do is register a domain, and then I'd build a website. And for both of those things, I would recommend checking out Squarespace. Squarespace makes it so easy to build a website. You take one of their templates and you fill it with your words, your images, your video, your personality. It's never been easier to create something that's truly beautiful and a great representation of what you do or who you are online. And more than that, there's nothing to patch or upgrade or install. There's 24/7 email customer support, and your website will look stunning on every device, on every browser. If you've got an idea at the back of your mind, then just sign up at the link below for a free trial and build something. Create a beautiful website, and when you're ready to launch, use code James Hoffmann for 10% off any website or domain. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. So this one last hack is an interesting one, and it actually turned up on the Decent forums. There's a private forum for Decent owners, Decent being this espresso machine right here. Now someone on there had the idea of taking one of these and spraying the puck with up to a gram of water before pulling a shot. A kind of pre-wet, which seems like a strange thing to do, but it had a couple of interesting impacts. Firstly, if you sprayed the puck and let it soak in, when you added more water, that water soaked in very quickly in comparison to a dry puck. So perhaps during the pre-wet you had a more effective pre-wetting going on there. Secondly, they saw an increase in puck resistance during the shot. Now, puck resistance is an interesting measurement that very few machines would really pay any attention to, but if your puck is easier than usual to get through, that's probably a bad thing, indicating channeling, and having a puck that's a little bit harder to get through indicates that you're more likely having a more even flow through that puck. So that was interesting, and that was definitely worth testing. I'm not sure it's something you'd want to add to your routine every single day, but if you've got one of these lying around, then yes, it's absolutely worth giving it a test. And now again, you might say, aha, but now what about the water in the bottle? Surely now that has to matter. So I did some tests, and it turned out the distilled water had the worst results. These tests weren't conclusive, but the taste was the worst, and there was more channeling and issues in those shots than there was with filtered normal water and hard water from the tap. Again, not a massive impact, and certainly not a large enough sample set to really guarantee the results. But again, I wouldn't be spending the money or time or effort getting distilled water to put in one of these when filtered water that you brew your coffee with will probably be just fine. So there it is, the little spray bottle. I would say a useful addition to your coffee kit, whether you're grinding for espresso, grinding for filter, grinding for both. If you have a single dose grinder, it's probably helpful, but do think about whether it's going to impact your workflow, whether some of the caveats that I mentioned before will impact you. Many people have been doing this for a long time, and if you're one of them, I want to hear from you down in the comments below. Let me know how you're getting on. Let me know what you like or dislike about having this as a part of your routine. Is it now an essential for you? Let me know down in the comments below. But for now, I'll say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.